Inventory planning is the second type of planning process that belongs to general planning and that is of our interest in supply chain management. In particular, pay attention to this class because this will be very important because this will be recalled in the next module, production, when we'll deal with inventory management models. So please, that's why I am assessing on this because it's key that you understand what has been taught in this class because this will be fundamental to understand very well the next module, in particular for the part when we will deal with inventory management model in production. First of all, you are watching this video in Kaltura, and I am tracking if you're watching this video or not. Be sure that this shows up in your Kaltura page. So if your name shows up, it means that you watching this video is recorded. Otherwise, it means that it's anonymous and you won't get points for watching this video. Points that will be 25. Again, after this video, you will have a knowledge-based test, very easy on this part, just to be sure that you understand what has been covered. But the knowledge-based test will have 3 questions, okay, 2 on this part and 1 of the forecasting performance aspect. And the remaining 25 points will be given by you watching this lecture. So a quarter of your knowledge base assessment is made through watching this video. Okay, so please just make sure that you're watching, you are logged in, and then come back and start from here. What we'll cover is some introductory concept about inventory management, then we will distinguish some stock typologies, and then we will deal more with inventory management and inventory costs. Let's start with some basic concepts. So, inventory. Let's define inventory at first. So, inventories is composed by, in a supply chain, by all the material, components, semi-finished goods, and finished goods which are stored somewhere waiting to be processed. So basically, inventory in a supply chain is whichever goods, material, no matter which is its state in the supply chain, which is waiting to be processed, so which is waiting to be passed to the next stage or to be sold to the final market. Of course, it includes both tangible asset, which can be product, material, goods, but inventory does not include everything that is depreciated through the balance sheet. So if you remember accounting, so inventory does not include all the assets that are subjected to amortization because these are treated in a different way from a cost perspective. We'll see that inventory has cost associated, and of course building equipment, machineries are treated in terms of cost through depreciation and amortization. So for this reason, they are not formally included in inventory in a supply chain, even if like you can store like equipment, you can store machineries, you can store vehicle, but these are not formally part of the concept of inventory in supply chain management. In particular, as I anticipated in the first class, there is a distinction between inventory and stock. Which is the difference? The difference is that inventory is the physical quantity of material, components, and finished goods and finished goods. So these are the the physical units that you have in inventory. There is another way way to call inventory, which is called stock. Stock instead is the inventory, but valorized at its value, so in terms of dollars. So it's no other than the unit multiplied by the value of the unit. So it's the dollar expression of the value of the inventory. I will usually use these 2 terms like complementary, but still, like just remember that inventory refers to unit and stock refer to the monetary value of materials, components, semi-finished goods, and finished product. Where you can find inventory in a supply chain, like everywhere. So you have inventory in warehouses, so material stock in warehouse waiting to be transported to the next stage. You have inventory in progress in transit, so inventory in on truck, on sea transportation, on railroad transportation. So inventory in movement. So this is I told the fact, like inventory, like you are storing goods and service and materials which are being transported to the next stage. But you have also inventory like during the production process, because between one phase and the other, production process creates inventory, and you have inventory at the end of the production process once products are finished and are packed in order to be brought to the next warehouse. And you have inventory also in terms of supply. So whenever you receive supply of materials and components, of course these are given in input to production process, but before being given in input to the production process, they are stored somewhere waiting to be requested by production plants. Pay attention that when we talk about inventory management is means defining how much material we need to store at each level of the supply chain to allow the supply chain to work in line with market request. Remember that there is an horizontal and vertical span of the supply chain. So supply chain is made by different nodes: supplier, manufacturer, distributor. So we need to understand how much inventory to put at each level of the supply chain. So this is these are the suppliers. So how much inventory the supplier need to have inbound, outbound, and during the process. How much inventory the manufacturer need to have inbound, outbound, and during the process, and the distributor as well. But of course, like there are more than one supplier, there is more than one plant, there is more than one distributor. So the inventory management in the supply chain is a three-dimensional problem. Okay, so not only how much inventory at each stage, but also how much inventory for different actor at the same node. Why you should think about that? Because in the last part we will see that inventory has a cost, and like if you remember this, you can imagine the magnitude of this cost. So supply chain is made by n level with m actors at each level. Each actor at each level has inventory, and each inventory inbound, in process, and outbound has a cost. So imagine a supply chain with inventory level not optimized, how much inefficient can be given the magnitude of this problem and and the volume that we are talking about. In particular, when we talk about inventory management, basically we talk about when supply chain need to deal with inventory management, we are talking about the so-called replenishment policies, which means inventory management has the objective of define how much, when, and where to all the inventories during the supply chain flow. So how much, how many units, when these units are needed, and where they need to be stored at each level of the supply chain. So that's the question inventory management has the objective to answer. So supply chain need material. That can be material in terms of raw material and component, or they can be work in progress product, or they can be finished product. We need to define at each level of the supply chain how much we need, okay, when we need it. So every day we need 20 units of metal, 20 units of wood, 20 units of paper, every day, every 2 days, every week. So when this material is needed and where it is supposed to be stored. We have 7 distribution centers. All the distribution centers need to have the same quantity of material, or we can like specialize some of them and try to optimize a little bit the allocation. In order to do that, and that what we will see in the production module, we can apply the so-called some inventory management techniques. So some model that allow the supply chain actor to model and to quantify and to understand how much, when and where to hold inventory. To do that, what you need to know? You need to know, of course, the demand plan. So that's why demand management and planning was fundamental to be addressed first, because of course inventory, so how much material I need, when and where, is function of when and how much, when I have to satisfy it and how much is my demand. Okay, so we need demand forecast and the estimated accuracy of this forecast in order to understand, in order to realize this product for period 10, I will need this type of material in this at this time, and in order to arrive at the final market in this period, this material need to be held in this location. Okay, but without knowing the demand plan, of course, I'm not able to plan which material and when I will have to produce. Then, of course, I have to define the service level. Again, remember that supply chain, especially the push supply chain, work on forecast, okay? And the forecast can be more or less accurate. How much I want to be sure this accuracy is high, how much it means that the supply chain provides a high service level to the next node, which means how much will be like the amount of material that I will include in order to be sure that in case the demand will be higher, I will be in any case able to satisfy the request and to execute the process. Okay, so the demand management and the service level that I want to guarantee to every node of the supply chain and the final market, of course, they influence the amount of inventory, because again, if I want to guarantee 100% of service level, I need to be sure that no matter is the magnitude of the demand compared to what I forecast, I will have the finished product, the material, the components that I will need it at every time. So it means that, of course, the availability of this material through the supply chain need to be very high. Then, of course, I need to know the replenishment lead time. So it's not that if I need a new touchscreen for producing laptop, or if I need a new gear system to produce a car, I need it now, and I ask to my supplier this, and after 1 minute my supplier is providing this component. Like, that's not true. There is a replenishment lead time, so a time that is needed to be waited between the time in which the node of the supply chain issue a request and the material, the component, the product is delivered. And of course, when I quantify my inventory, how much, when, and where to hold, I need to consider also the time that is needed every time I need to replenish. I need to issue a new request. I have to replenish my inventory. Last but not least, cost. So we will see that inventory deal with cost. Okay, so having inventory is not cost-free for the supply chain. So in taking the decision of how much, when, and where, I need to balance the trade-off between I want to provide the maximum service to my customer and to my partner in the supply chain, but on the other side, I have to consider that having too much inventory has also a lot of cost for my supply chain. The role of inventory management. So, as we are talking about planning process, we discussed that in demand management, saying that demand management and planning is very relevant for any supply chain, but is particularly relevant for push supply chain because in push supply chain, I cannot wait until the customer demand will show up. So I have to be sure that I forecast with accuracy, which is as much as possible near the actual demand, so that I can plan in advance what to produce and what to bring to the market in order to be responsive and reactive when in the future the customer demand will arise. While instead in pull supply chain, demand management is only a way to, let's say, evaluate the magnitude of the demand, but then being a pull context, I will actually produce and I will actually start my processes once my customer will issue an actual demand. For inventory management is the same, but on a different perspective. So in inventory management, in push supply chain, inventory management, as you can see here, is a lever to increase the supply chain efficiency. So as we will see that supply chain inventory has cost associated, given the fact that I can produce and I can plan activities in advance because I am reacting on a forecast, on a plan, and not on the actual demand, I need to be able to be sure that in planning my activities, okay, I will define how much inventory, when, where is needed, and where it needs to be held, is a decision that is taken in an optimized way. So given the fact that I can plan in advance my production activities and my distribution activities, because I'm operating on forecast, I need to be sure that the inventory which is distributing in the different part of the supply chain is an optimized quantity. Why I can do that? Because I can organize this decision, I can take this decision, I can analyze this decision in advance. Of course, it is essential that the inventory which is positioned near the customer is the right quantity, because again, I don't have time to produce everything from scratch. So inventory management is critical for what concerns the market side, because the customer goes to the store and want to have the product available, and if not, I need to have inventory to replenish it immediately. So it's a critical decision to serve the customer, but then internally in the supply chain, inventory management is a lever to obtain efficiency. To obtain efficiency because, again, as I can organize myself in advance, how much material I will need, how much product I will produce, where it will be positioned, at which time. These are all decisions that I can take in advance and in an optimized way. So in push supply chain, inventory management is a lever internally to gain efficiency, and of course externally, like in the perspective of the customer, like is the way to satisfy the customer request. So it's also a lever of effectiveness, but like it's the condition for a push supply chain to exist. So it's not even a lever of effectiveness, it's like the final outcome. Okay, inventory is the production of push supply chain. You go to a store, you want a bottle of shampoo or a package of pasta, you need to be available. That's inventory, that's the result of production in advance. But internally is, okay, we know that we need inventory at different stage. As I can react on plan, which are organized months and months in advance, please let's, and as of course I need to position as much as possible inventory in the final market, because customer will ask for product and these need to be available. Please let's try to gain efficiency internally and optimize inventory between the different supply chain actors, because we can do that due to the fact that we can organize ourselves in advance and according to predefined plan. In push supply chain instead, inventory is a lever of effectiveness, because again, push supply chain react to customer needs, to customer demand. Of course, when the customer issue a demand, the sooner we can start producing, the better it is. But we can start producing if we have material available. And material are available if my supplier were able to produce them using other material. So basically, inventory management in push supply chain becomes the lever to make the lead time of customer request satisfaction as short as possible once the demand has been issued to the supply chain. So in this case, inventory management is dimensioned in a way that it needs to assure, it needs to guarantee the supply chain a good level of responsiveness. Okay, so they dimension inventory management not in an optimized way, like in push supply chain, in order to lower cost, but in a way that, let's say, we admit to have more cost, So more inventory available without penalizing, of course, without, let's say, not allowing the customization and the tailorization that pool supply chain promise to the customer. But basically, they allow this optimized inventory decision for providing final customer a higher level of service. So in this case, inventory is a way to have the product and have the material, have the component fastly available, so that when you issue the demand, we can start executing our process as fast as possible. What does it mean that inventory can help pool supply chain decreasing operational cost? So why through inventory push supply chain can decrease their operational cost? On one side, inventory, so putting materials that are waiting to be processed, can allow two different phases or two different supply chain nodes to be independent. Like if I have, imagine, this is my supplier and this is me. If we don't have inventory in between, okay, so if I don't store materials and components coming from my suppliers, so this is actually a continuous error. It means that I can produce and I can run my production only when suppliers are able to give me some materials, some components that I can use in my production process. But imagine if anything happened on the supplier side. So there is like a strike or a plant disruption or whatever can stop production on the supplier side. Like, as there is nothing here, like I'm stuck and I'm stopped as well. So it means that we have actually resources in two nodes in the supply chain, supplier and customer, which are paid, which are stored in our income statement and balance sheet, which are not used. So not having inventory make phases in a process and nodes in the supply chain interconnected within each other. And if some has problem or if some is lower than the other one, this constrain also the next one. If I allow creation of inventory, okay, my supplier produced thing, they are put in inventory, they are stored somewhere according to the rules that we have defined, and no matter what happened here, I can still keep my resource active and I can still producing, or if it is a distributor, I can still delivering product to the final market, because I have a point of storage from which I can take material components that I need and run my operation. Of course, the bigger is the storage point, the higher will be my continuity of operation. The smaller it is, the smaller will be my ability to continue my process after my supplier or my previous phase has stopped working or has experienced problem. But again, in this case, inventory decouple two different production phases or two different supply chain nodes, because this work also if you are talking about different production activities. If you allow the separation of two production activities with inventory, of course, if for some reason one production activity stop or is lower or whatever, this does not constrain the next one, because there is inventory in between that can be used to cope with this transitioning period. So first, and of course, once, let's say, two phases or two nodes in the supply chain are not working, this is a waste of resources. So this is our higher cost. So first, inventory decouple two different production phases or supply chain nodes, making them independently, and so allow them the possibility to not waste resources. On the other side, so this is internally. Externally, inventory reduce the need of supply chain to be flexible. So we have seen that market demand is usually uncertain and unpredictable. So this is for what concerns like internal inventory. So internal inventory, so inventory between different actors or different phases in the supply chain, allow to decouple two different phases and so avoiding the possibility to waste resources. External inventory, which is the inventory near the final customer, okay, decrease the need of the supply chain to be flexible. So basically, we have to understand that supply chain work in very unpredictable and uncertain environment where demand, final customer demand, of course, need to be forecasted, and forecasted are always wrong. So we are actually planning and managing and organize ourselves on something that it's not, we don't have the 100% certainty that it will happen. Okay? Imagine you are in a context where this demand is very unstable. Whenever this demand arises, if you don't have anything between that is able to protect you from this uncertainty, basically you have to be sure that your supply chain is able to react, no matter is the pull or a push context, to this instability of the demand. So they ask you 1 million of units. You need to be able to produce or to provide on inventory 1 million of units. Or you have to, they ask you the next period 0, you have to be able to go through a period where you are not selling anything. And then the next period they are asking you 2 million. You need to be able to pass from 0 units realized and delivered in one period and 2 million units delivered and realized in the next period. This, of course, requires supply chain a higher level of flexibility. So there needs to be a capability in the supply chain system to react, adapt, and organize themselves to an uncertain and unpredictable demand. If we don't have anything in between, that's what we have to deal with. Okay, so I don't have any buffer, any protection point. I need to just be exposed to the variability of the demand. If instead I include inventory, inventory is a way to absorb a little bit this type of variability. So imagine that this period I have 0 and the next period I have 1 million. If I have 200,000 units already ready in inventory, the variability of the demand is not 0 to 1 million, is 0 to 800,000. So inventory actually allow us to smooth possible variability of the external customer demand. Why? Because they absorb its material, its product, its resource that is already present that can be used to smooth a little bit the variability and the uncertainty linked to the demand. And so they reduce the need of the supply chain and its sector to be very reactive and flexible. And to be reactive and flexible, of course, they need to configure system with this characteristic, which means additional cost. So internally, inventory allow supply chain phases to be independent and so to use resources in a most optimized way, efficiency. Externally, inventory allows supply chain to be able to manage demand and uncertainty in a more efficient way by decreasing the need of operational flexibility. And so again, it's a cost saving which decreases the operational cost. So in this case, you are acting on the efficiency side. On the other side, especially what concern pool supply chain, they increase the customer service level. Okay, so thanks to inventory in pool supply chain, you are able to satisfy the customer request as fast as possible, because again, the more you already have material spread on the chain, the more you can activate the process to react to the customer demand. In push supply chain, like inventory instead is the customer service level. So again, I'm separating these two levels, but like in push supply chain, like inventory is the satisfaction of the customer demand. So it doesn't increase the customer service level, is the service level given to the customer. So you have this amount of product in inventory, and that is what the customer can buy whenever it goes to a store or a distribution center or whatever you are selling your product. So on the other side, inventory in both push and pull supply chain has an impact on customer, because in pull supply chain It allowed the supply chain to react as fast as possible to customer demand and to start production along the chain if you have material, components, semi-finished goods available at different level. In push supply chain, of course, it represents the way through which the customer find availability of your product. Because they go to the store, if you dimension and optimize enough inventory, the customer every time that goes to a retail store find the product that he's looking for. Of course, these are not the only way through which inventory can create value in supply chain, so increasing the service level or decreasing the operational cost. We are not dealing with that, but just remember that, for example, there are some materials that are called commodities, so there are the ones that are quoted in the stock market, like metal, like rice, like paper, like wood, gasoline, like this type of commodity are quoted in the market. So you can do some financial activities, so you can buy and resell according to the market condition to gain value from this type of action. So you can invest, you can make investment and create inventory which is not used for production, but it's only for like financial activities purpose that can realize saving from the companies coming from financial activities. It's not like it's not uncommon that companies have physical stock, physical inventory of product that is not used for production, but has just been bought to be resold to make profit on financial activities, just to play with the fact that some commodities have prices that are indexed to the market, and if I buy today because the price is very low and I resell the next month where the price is very high, I make a profit that then is included in my profit as loss statement. It can be a marketing lever for attractive customer. I always make the example of Blockbuster that when it was still like alive and having a business model which was up to date, was promising to the customer that like if they were not able to find the copies that they were looking for, they would have like rent this copy for free when this will be available. Why? Because Blockbuster was so confident about their way to manage inventory and how they will use inventory to increase customer service level, that they were 100% sure that whenever you will go in every point of sales, you were able to find what you were looking for, and it was very rare that you wouldn't have paid for the renting because you were not able to find the copy of your video. Our product is always available, so a customer service and marketing lever, promotion in particular. They can play a role in improving product quality. So in some cases, inventory, so creation of inventory, is not even a decision, it's part of the production process. Think about cheese, like cheese ripening, like increase the quality of cheese, okay? So thanks to the cheese resting in facilities at a certain temperature and a specific for a specific time, the cheese increases quality and assumes some physical and chemical and flavor properties. Or think about wine and beer, like fermentation and all this kind of stuff, like they increase the quality of the product. So creation of inventory in this case contributes to increase the let's say quality of the product, and also the price that you will pay for this type of product. Or again, resting is essential to optimize some technical production cycle. Think about thermal treatment. When you thermal treat with heat or cold a particular product, that you need some time for this product to rest and let's say absorb the new chemical properties, the new condition state, and so like creation of inventory, and they need to stay like, I don't know, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. Like think about metal. This is typical in the metal industry. Like when you forge a piece of steel, okay, it go through an Erma to heating oven and they need to rest hour and hour after they've been thermal treated, because they need to like absorb, and they need to like be configured in the new state for a certain amount of hours. Like, this is inventory. For some hour you have products which are stored somewhere without the possibility to put that into the next stage. This is something which is linked to the characteristic of the production cycle. Or think about tinting. Like, I worked for a long time with a company making boat and helicopter. Like, once the helicopter and boat, so this type of product, have been realized, you have to paint them. Okay, and especially like if you're talking about military helicopter, the painting activity is very critical, because some of the painting are special painting, which are like resistant to water, resisting to like particular type of attack. And when you paint an helicopter, then it needs to rest from 48 to 72 hours in order for the helicopter to absorb and to, let's say, integrate with the special paint. So imagine you have an helicopter, $1 million of helicopter, stored there, because this is inventory, for 72 hours, exposed to the risk that everything can happen to this product. Not because you decide that, but because it's part of the assembly and production process of the helicopter. So that's not a choice that the company make or the supply chain make, is a choice that is linked to the characteristic of the production cycle. So that was an introduction about stock typologies, stock main concept, and inventory management role in supply chain. Now, the step that we are doing right now is understanding which are the main stock typology, inventory typology that are present in supply chain, and how inventory is modeled from a stock. Which are the type of inventory and stock that exist in supply chain? So, basically, inventory is of different type. From a supply chain, let's say from a like physical perspective, we have stock in plant and in warehouse. So stock in plant is usually work in progress stock and inventory. So inventory that is used during the production process, and then in input for raw materials and component, and in output once the product has been realized. Then we have in warehouse, which is usually stock of final product waited to be like delivered to the next stage or to the final market. And of course we have stock in transit, which is the stock that is usually included in a truck, in airplane, in boat, when it is when products are being transported. Of course, remember when we talk about like cross-docking and P&G and Walmart, in warehouse we can have like permanent stock, so stock that is supposed to be there and stay there until the next stage requested, or the so-called cross-docking stock, so the stock that is created on a temporary basis, so products that are just stored there, but they are waiting to be processed to be very fastly delivered to the next stage, whenever like distribution center is not like a stocking distribution center, but is the so-called transit point. We will see that when we will deal with distribution, but remember that stock and inventory can be temporary, so the value can be temporarily stocked or permanently stocked in a distribution center. So, how inventory management works in the supply chain? So, that's very important, because no matter is the state or the characteristic of the classification of inventory in a supply chain, this is how inventory is seen for every material, every product, every component, and every node in the supply chain. So, on the x-axis, you see time. And here you have consumption, okay? So how inventory management is managed, inventory is managing the supply chain from a consumption perspective. So how does inventory pattern work in supply chain? Again, this is just a case for one node in the supply chain, one particular material, but this is valid for every type of material and product and semi-finished product you can think of. So there is an initial level of inventory. So we start today. Okay, I need to produce a laptop, and I have like today 50 keyboard. So I can produce 50 laptop. Okay, initial level of the inventory. During time, I will use this type of, in this case, keyboard, to realize the product that are requested from the final market. So the market is asking me, okay, realize 50 laptop. Perfect. So I will use the 50 keyboard, okay, to realize the 50 laptop that are requested by the market. And same, the person that will have the laptop inventory, they will use the 50 laptop to satisfy the market demand. But the point is that I start with 50, okay, and during time, according to the demand from the final market, I will consume my keyboard to produce of my laptop to be sold to the market. So it will be a point in time where I will have no more keyboard and no more laptop. So what happens when I have no more keyboard and or no more laptop? The node in the supply chain say, oh, we need new material as we are out of inventory. So if you want to keep producing or if you want to keep selling in the market, we need new material. So for this reason, we need to be sure that the supplier of the keyboard and the producer of the laptop will be able to deliver to me the product when I will need it. However, imagine today is Tuesday and I realize that I'm out of laptop or keyboard or whatever. Okay, and like if I issue a request to my supplier, it's not that today I'm recording this video at 11. It's not that if I'm out of inventory at 11 and I request this inventory to my supplier at 11:01, the supplier is able to give me what I'm running out of. There is a certain amount of time which is called replenishment lead time that my supplier need to replenish the inventory. So if I wait until the inventory is at 0 level, of course I need to wait the replenishment lead time, and when the material now will arrive, I will have again my inventory replenished. But during this time, my inventory will be 0 and I won't be able to run my process because of lacking of this material, or I won't be able to sell the product because I won't have any more product in inventory. That's why we usually set the so-called reorder point, which is the level of the inventory corresponding to the time that is needed to my supplier to replenish my inventory, but this amount of inventory is enough to satisfy the demand while the supplier is working toward this replenishment. So basically, if I know that my supplier replenishment lead time is 3 days, I need to issue a request of reorder whenever my level of inventory is enough to satisfy 3 days of demand, because after 3 days my level of inventory will be 0, but after 3 days my supplier will be able to replenish my inventory. Again, because this is an important concept, so I repeat that. So if I wait until the level of inventory is 0, like when I reorder, if the reorder point will be here, my supplier will need some time to give me the inventory, to realize the inventory and give me the new product. So there will be a time here where I will be out of material of product and I won't be able to run my process. So I need to set the reorder point before I'm running out of inventory. When is this before? This before is when I have enough amount of material, of product, to satisfy and to execute my process during the time that is needed to my supplier to replenish the inventory. Again, example, if the replenishment lead time of my supplier is 3 days, okay, I need to ask to reorder the keyboard when I have an amount of keyboard in inventory, which is enough for me to produce laptop for 3 days. After 3 days, I will be running out of keyboard, but then the supplier will give me a new, let's say, lot of keyboard, and my inventory level will be replenished. So, when it is time to reorder, I reorder the keyboard to my supplier. Okay, my supplier will take 3 days. Is it a problem? No, because for 3 days I have still enough inventory to produce laptop. Then when it's 0, okay, we need new materials and we are out of inventory, but I issue an order at the correct reorder point. I will receive the new lot and my inventory level will be replenished to the initial value. And like that's how it goes. Okay, so then I will restart from here. I will consume when it will be the reorder point. Again, issue a new order. When I'll be out, it will be replenished. That's why this is called the sawtooth diagram, because inventory management in a supply chain is usually managed, is usually modeled with this trend. So there is a linear consumption of material, and there is a reorder point for each material or each finished product that is needed in the supply chain, which is the point in which the next stage of the supply chain need to reorder in order to give the previous stage enough time to replenish without compromising the ability of the next stage to satisfy, to run its process and satisfy the need of the next stage. Example. So, the initial level of the inventory is 60. Okay, so I start with 60. So I want for this type of material 60 units as inventory. My demand is 2 units, as it is like the slope. It is the slope of this curve. Okay, 2 units per day. Now, it means that every day I consume 2 units from the inventory to run my process, or if I am in the final, market, I will sell product every day for 2 units. So the consume decrease until I will reach the 0. When I reach the 0, I need to ask my previous stage to give me new product. Okay, problem. My supplier need 5 days to replenish inventory, so to give me 60 new units. So if I issue the request here, it will take 5 days, which means that for 5 days I won't have any material for satisfy the demand. So I will lose 10 potential sales because the demand is 2 units, I won't be able to satisfy them. So I need to issue the request of reordering when I have at the minimum, when I have in inventory enough quantity left to satisfy 5 days of demand, because it's 5 days that my supplier need to replenish my inventory. So I will consume my inventory, I will reach the reorder point. How much is the reorder point? Is the level of inventory that will allow me to satisfy 5 days of the demand, because after 5 days of the demand, my inventory will be 0, but my supplier will be able to provide me a new lot. How much is this level of inventory? 10. So whenever I have 10 units, okay, I am able to satisfy the request for 5 days. So if I issue an order here, okay, my supplier will take 5 days to realize the new lot, and me for 5 days I will have to satisfy a request of 2 units per day. So I will use 2 units of this material per day. I will reach the 5th day where my inventory is 0, but my supplier needs exactly 5 days to satisfy the request, and when I will be out of stock, he will be immediately able to replenish my inventory to the initial level, 60 units. If this is clear, And that's everything I want to be aware of for this class. In the supply chain, starting from this model, we distinguish three types of stock or inventory: cycle stock, safety stock, and dead stock. So next week we will start from here and I will describe you the difference. So starting from the sawtooth diagram and what we just discussed. Okay, so having in mind this, next week I will tell you that starting from the sawtooth diagram, actually in modeling this situation, there are three different types of stock that you need to consider that are separated and have different aspects from an inventory management model perspective, and that you need to consider every time you take inventory management decision and optimization, and you try to make optimization aspects.